Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. You ready to unlock some serious brain power? Today we're going to be diving into the fascinating worlds of neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Yeah, buckle up because we're about to discover that our brains are way more dynamic than we ever thought.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to explore this with all of you. We'll be using this really interesting document called Neuroplasticity, Kamimin Financing Quantum Lihagyang as our guide. So let's jump right in.
It's pretty wild how for the longest time we were convinced that different parts of the brain were like hardwired for specific tasks. And that was it. End of story. Turns out that's not quite the whole picture.
Right. I remember learning about those dedicated brain regions too. Like one for vision, another for recognizing faces. It all seemed so, permanent. What was it that really shifted that whole perspective?
Well, back in the 1960s, there was this neuroscientist named Paul Bach-y-Rita, and he developed this device for people who are blind. And it really shook things up in the field, led to some amazing discoveries. Like this one experiment where they found that the part of a cat's brain that normally processes sight
Mhm.
could also handle sound and touch. It was mind-blowing, and it kind of opened up this whole new way of looking at the brain's potential.
Wait, so you're saying the part of the brain that's supposed to be for seeing could also manage hearing and feeling? That's incredible.
Yeah,
It's like our brains have all these hidden talents just waiting to be unleashed.
exactly. And that's where neuroplasticity comes in. It's basically the brain's ability to change and adapt throughout our lives. It creates these new neural connections in response to all sorts of things, like learning new skills, recovering from injuries, even just our everyday experiences. It's constantly evolving.
Okay, so if our brains are constantly remodeling themselves based on everything we do, think, and experience, does that mean we can actually rewire our brains on purpose?
Absolutely. Think of your brain like a muscle that gets stronger the more you exercise it. The more you challenge it, the more flexible and adaptable it becomes. And the best part, you have the power to shape your own brain.
Wow, that's a powerful thought. So when we learn new things, are we actually physically changing the structure of our
You
brains?
got it. Every time you learn something new, your brain forms new connections between neurons, like it's building little pathways between different areas. And the more you practice whatever you're learning, the stronger and more efficient those pathways get. It's kind of like walking through a forest. The more you walk a certain path, the more defined and clear it becomes.
I love that analogy. So repetition is key when it comes to solidifying those connections in our brains, right?
Yeah, to a certain extent, repetition is important, but it's not just about mindlessly repeating something over and over again. When you really engage in deeper learning, when you're connecting ideas and concepts, that's when you create the strongest and most lasting neural pathways.
That brings up a really interesting question then. If our brains are constantly rewiring themselves, what does that say about our sense of self? Are we constantly evolving too?
That's a great question. And, there's a Vietnamese psychologist named Dr. Phong Mai, and she argues that there's actually no such thing as a fixed self. Instead, she says we're always evolving based on our experiences, our relationships, even the books we read.
Hold on. You're telling me the books we read can actually change who we are. This is blowing my mind. I'm
Yep.
starting to see just how powerful this whole idea of rewiring our brains really is.
It is incredibly powerful, and it really highlights how important it is to be mindful of the information we consume. The people we surround ourselves with, the activities we engage in, they all play a role in shaping our brains and ultimately who we become. It's pretty amazing when you think about it.
So it sounds like we're basically sculpting our own brains just by the choices we make and the experiences we have. But how do we actually tap into that power? Where do we even begin?
Well, that's where the idea of consciously shaping our brains comes into play. It's
Mhm.
about realizing that we're not just passive passengers.
Right.
We can actually take the wheel and steer our brains in the direction we want to go.
Okay. I'm definitely on board with taking charge of my brain power. But how do we actually do that? What are some concrete steps we can take?
One really powerful tool is mindfulness. It's all about being present in the moment without judgment, just noticing your thoughts, feelings, and sensations as they come and go.
Mindfulness sounds kind of like a passive thing, though. How does simply paying attention help to rewire our brains for more positive responses?
Well, that's where the real magic happens. See, when you're mindful, you create a little space between a stimulus and your automatic reaction. Instead of just mindlessly reacting, you can pause, observe, and then choose a more helpful response. And that conscious choice strengthens those new neural pathways, leading to more resilience and better emotional regulation.
So it's like mindfulness helps us to hit the pause button on autopilot and then choose a different path. I like that. What are some other ways we can actively rewire our brains?
Another key strategy is to constantly challenge your brain with new learning experiences. Remember, every time you learn something new, you're forging new connections and strengthening existing ones in your brain.
So things like picking up a new language, learn to play an instrument, or even trying a new recipe.
Exactly. Anything that pushes you out of your comfort zone and forces your brain to work in different ways. And it doesn't have to be some huge undertaking either. Even small changes to your daily routine can make a difference.
Like taking a different route to work or brushing my teeth with my non-dominant hand.
You got it. Those little changes force your brain to adapt and engage, creating new neural pathways along the way. It's all about keeping your brain active and stimulated.
I never thought about it like that. It's pretty amazing how those seemingly small actions can have such a big impact on our brain's wiring.
They really can. And the benefits go way beyond just forming new connections. Challenging your brain can also improve your cognitive flexibility, enhance your memory, and even boost your creativity.
This is all starting to click. But what about someone who's really struggling with negative thought patterns? Can neuroplasticity help in that situation too?
Absolutely. One technique that can be really helpful is called cognitive reframing. It's about consciously challenging those negative thoughts and replacing them with more positive or realistic ones.
So instead of thinking, I'm terrible at this, you might encourage someone to say, I'm still learning and I'm getting better every day.
Exactly. By consistently practicing cognitive reframing, you can actually train your brain to be more optimistic and resilient. You're essentially replacing those well-worn negative pathways with shiny new positive ones.
I love that idea. It's like we can take control of that inner critic and turn it into our own personal cheerleader. It seems like neuroplasticity isn't just some abstract concept. It's a powerful tool for self-improvement.
It really is. And it's not just about overcoming challenges, it's about unlocking your full potential and creating a more fulfilling life.
This is all super inspiring, but I gotta admit, it can also feel a bit overwhelming. Where do we even begin to put all of this into practice?
That's a great point. It's easy to get caught up in all the possibilities, but the key is to start small and build from there.
So baby steps are the way to go.
Absolutely. Just choose one or two strategies that really resonate with you and start incorporating them into your daily life. Don't try to do everything at once, or you'll likely end up feeling overwhelmed.
That sounds like a good plan.
Mm.
I like that's about progress, not perfection. But I'm still curious about what it actually means to cultivate a growth mindset.
That's a fantastic question, and it's something we're going to dive into as we wrap up our deep dive today.
You're killing me with suspense. But okay, I guess we can wait. So far, we've learned about the importance of mindfulness, challenging our brains, and even reframing those pesky negative thoughts. It's all about creating those positive pathways and rewiring our brains for a better, brighter future.
That's the gist of it. And remember, you have the power within you to make it happen. Stay tuned, because in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore the concept of a growth mindset and give you some practical steps to continue on your journey of self-discovery and growth.
Welcome back, everyone. We're in the home stretch now for the final part of our deep dive into the amazing world of neuroplasticity. It's been quite a journey so far, don't you think?
It really has. We've come a long way.
Yeah.
We started by debunking that whole myth of the fixed brain. Then we uncovered the incredible power of neuroplasticity and even explored some practical strategies for actually rewiring our brains for the better.
Right. We talked about mindfulness, challenging our brains with new things,
Yeah.
and even how to reframe those pesky negative thoughts. But before we wrap things up, you mentioned something about a growth mindset last time. What exactly does that mean, and why is it so important when it comes to all of this?
Well, it's fascinating because all those strategies we talked about, they actually work even better when they're powered by the right mindset. A growth mindset is basically the belief that your abilities aren't set in stone. They can be developed through effort and hard work. It's the opposite of having a fixed mindset, where you believe your talents are just predetermined and there's nothing you can do to change them.
So it's about believing that you can always learn and grow no matter where you're starting from.
Exactly. People with a growth mindset, they see challenges as opportunities to learn and get better. They embrace feedback. They don't give up easily when they hit a setback. And they tend to achieve more because they truly believe in their ability to grow. Think about it this way. Someone with a fixed mindset might say, "Ugh, I'm just not good at math." But someone with a growth mindset would say, "I'm going to work hard and get better at math." It's a subtle shift in thinking, but it can make a huge difference in your life.
That makes a lot of sense. So how can we actually cultivate this growth mindset and really tap into the power of neuroplasticity to make positive changes in our lives?
It all starts with awareness. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself. Are you constantly putting yourself down or focusing on your limitations? It's time to challenge those negative thoughts and start replacing them with more positive and empowering ones.
So instead of beating ourselves up with, I'm such a failure, Maybe we could try saying something like, okay, I'm learning from this experience and I'll do better next time.
Exactly. It's all about reframing those thoughts and believing in yourself. Remember, our brains are incredibly adaptable. We can literally rewire them for greater optimism and resilience.
It's like we're training our brains to focus on what's possible instead of getting stuck on our limitations. So what other steps can we take to really make this happen?
Don't be afraid of challenges. In fact, embrace them. Challenges are actually opportunities for growth. When you step outside your comfort zone, you're stretching and strengthening your brain,
Mhm.
literally building those new neural pathways.
That's a really cool way to look at it. So instead of avoiding things that feel hard, we should lean into them, knowing that we have the power to learn and adapt.
Exactly. And when you do experience success, no matter how small, celebrate it. Acknowledging your progress strengthens those positive pathways and keeps you motivated.
This has been such an eye-opening journey. I feel like I have a whole new understanding of how my brain works and what it's capable of. It's like discovering a superpower we all have.
I couldn't agree more. And the best part is this journey never really ends. There's always something new to learn, to explore new ways to rewire our brains for the better.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final piece of advice you can leave our listeners with? Something to inspire them to keep going on this path of growth and self-improvement.
I'd say this. What's one small step you can take today to nurture your growth mindset and tap into that amazing power of neuroplasticity?
I love that. It could be anything, really. Trying a new activity, reframing a negative thought, even just acknowledging a small victory you've had today. Every step, no matter how tiny, moves you closer to unlocking your full potential. Remember, your brain is a work in progress, and you are the artist.